Welcome to the No Streetlights podcast. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Tim. We'll be engaging in vulnerable conversations every Friday to shine a light on what we've been through,
how it changed us, and what we learned. We want to encourage societal growth towards kindness through understanding.
These conversations and the associated language can be triggering.
Listen at your own discretion.
But please reach out if we need to be doing something better.
So, let's take a breath, relax, and be welcome. This week, I've brought an incredible guest I am so stoked to have on. He's an old friend from high school who's been through a considerable amount since then.
Hell and back,
our good
I would
friend,
probably label it
Michael
as.
Brown, current boxing champion of the entire MOV.
Hell yeah. Welcome, Michael. Thank you for joining us today, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely, man. So it's been quite a while since I've gotten to talk with you, man. So what have you been up to since, middle school, high school time frame? What have you been getting yourself into? Tell us your story.
So really, I feel like you kind of hit home in a short term of things by saying just telling back. Since high school, we all went to junior high together and then high school together. And then towards the end of my high school year, life really took a turn for the worse for me. As you guys know vaguely, I was running with the wrong crowd. I always suffered with depression and severe anxiety, and I wanted to be accepted. So you guys remember in school, I was a class clown and looked for a way to people to like me by maybe making jokes or just being a butthead in class, picking on people. I found my own acceptance through the misery of others, which is terrible. I'm sure you guys remember. And I got introduced to drugs in junior high. I kind of kept things pretty discreet. But as time went on and then high school came around, I'm sure you guys remember, or, I'm sure you heard stories anyways. I started selling drugs and things. And I ended up getting introduced to pain pills in high school, ended up getting addicted to high potent level of Oxycontins my senior year, graduated high school with you guys. And I decided to go to college. And my first semester of college, I was introduced to heroin. Got real bad off on that. I ended up losing all my schooling and stuff. Lost my financial aid, dropped out of school. Also, if you guys remember, I had a landscaping business that was pretty successful there in my senior year. Started to be successful.
Yep.
But as soon as things started picking up, though, it all started falling apart. And I lost all that. I ended up selling all my equipment, and I lost all the jobs and stuff because I wasn't showing up one time and I just wasn't getting the jobs done. I was taking money and running off with it. So I lost that business when I was about 18, 19 years old. And, my life just started going a downward spiral fast. I didn't really see, I thought it was at the beginning, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I thought it was fun because life was fun. I thought girls liked me. I was hanging out in big groups. The weird thing was though, even though I was in a room full of people, 10, 15 people, 5, 10 friends, close friends, I still felt empty. I still felt lonely though. And I never did find that peace, so, it was a weird situation. I felt even though I could be throwing a party and have, I was searching for that belonging for so long. I would throw parties and I'd have 10, 15, 20 people over and I still felt like I was the only person in the room. I had no one to talk to, and my only escape through that feeling was getting high. So, I'd go to parties and there'd be 20, 30 people there and I'd be in the bathroom by myself or with one or two friends getting high on smoking heroin or, smoking weed or whatever it was. But I still I just never found that peace and happiness that I was, searching for. And, it took a long time for me to come to realize that I had a problem. And by the time I realized I had a problem, I was so far gone into the madness. There was really no help for me. And the help that was offered to me, I was unwilling to accept. People had told me that I had a problem, that I needed to get help. But I was I didn't really see it as a problem. I just seen it a lifestyle, kind of you know what I mean? It was my normality. It was what I was used to doing,
This is just what I'm doing.
Yeah, this is just, so it's normal to me. You wake up in the morning and chase and sell drugs. This is my everyday life.
Right.
I would go to bed at 2, 3 in the morning and I'd be up at noon. And then as soon as I woke up, I wouldn't even worry about brushing my teeth or combing my hair before I'm chasing the next guy down to make a next deal or next wheeling deal to make some money. to get the ball rolling for that day. And it was only a short time before I started burning relationships with my family and friends. I started losing a lot of my friends. My family started cutting me out. It went from 18 years old as a business owner and I guess you could say a successful drug dealer. I thought, which is a terrible way to put it, but I mean, I had sold drugs and I had acquired items that a kid of my category wouldn't have. Like I had a car, I had nice clothes, I had a dirt bike, I had a street bike, things that most people that grew up where I grew up at. You guys are familiar. I grew up on Lynn Street, which is like the hood or the most neglected neighborhood in Parkersburg, West Virginia.
Yeah, it's a rough spot.
I grew up there, and then very rough. And then I had acquired these items, so I thought like I was successful. I was getting these materialistic items, and I was like, I'm successful. But then as I got worse off my addiction, I started losing these things, and it was only a year or two in to some severe opiate addiction that I had lost everything. I had lost all these items, I had lost all my tools. I went from having like 3 cars to having 1 truck. I had a nice car and I had totaled it due to drinking and driving, and totaled my car, lost it, couldn't afford to get it fixed. I couldn't report it on insurance because I was drunk that night. So then I lost everything. I was down to a pickup truck, and my stepdad had passed away in 2014. I think I was 20, getting ready to turn 21. My stepdad passed away, and that's when my life like really went downhill. He raised me. He was the only person, authority figure that I ever had in my life. He did a great job trying to raise me, best of his ability. And whenever he left, man, I kind of just gave up. I mean, I still had my mom and stuff, but I really didn't have like no one telling me like you're slipping or you're making mistakes. I mean, he tried to tell me up to that point, but I really wasn't listening. But at least I had that.
Yeah.
So like after he had left, I got introduced to a needle and I started shooting drugs, and I started shooting pain pills and I started shooting heroin. And, when that happened, it was like I was already like playing with fire. And then now it's like I'm dancing with the devil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a sense, like any given day I could die without that fix or that use. I had nothing. And, I was sick, puking if I didn't have it. And so I would do anything and anything to anyone to get that drug. And, I remember going to my sister's house one day. I told her I was coming over to eat some lunch. She left the room. I robbed her house and stole my nephew's PlayStation. I remember begging my mom for money, and she didn't give me money. And I remember throwing rocks at her car and calling her terrible names. I remember just things that are just out of this world that I would do to get money from people, and robbed half this town. Tell people I do work for them, go get their money and leave. The longest employment position I ever had, an actual job, I think was 2 months up to this point, other than working for myself. I basically burnt every bridge that I ever had in my life. My uncle was a lead detective in Parkersburg, and he had seen where my life was going, and he had basically just cut all ties with me. I had got pulled over one night, and I was on the borderline of drinking and driving, and I had a bunch of punks in my car, young kids like me, drug addicts, and my uncle pulled up and he said, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I don't know, and I had passed the breathalyzer, but I was just under the legal limit. And he's like, your life's going to go to shit, Michael. He's like, you need to straighten up. And I was like, I'm going to. He's like, well, I'm cutting you off until then. And that's when I realized like I started having like a severe problem. Like, and he's like, you look what you're doing to your mom. We had lost everything. At this point, my stepdad's already gone. We were losing our house. We couldn't afford our bills. And so my mom told me, she said, Michael, she's like, we're losing the house. We're getting evicted. She said, I'm moving out next month. And I'm like, well, where are you going? She's like, I'm going out into one of my friends' house out in the country. She's like, you're welcome to come. It was in Belleville. That's like an hour from Parkersburg. You guys are familiar.
Yeah.
And it's out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm like, I can't do that. I can't go live out in the country when I'm addicted to heroin, addicted to opiates. There's no way of making money, and there's no way of getting the drugs that I need to sustain life out in the middle of the country. So I ended up staying in town and chose being homeless instead of moving in with my mom out in the country due to my addiction and my craving for that. And I picked all my stuff up that I needed. Just some clothes and stuff, packed a backpack, and filled my truck up with everything that I thought was important. And I just started sleeping at my friends' houses, and wherever I could, I slept in my truck multiple nights. I remember sleeping or not sleeping at all. I remember going to Planet Fitness and taking my showers there. My grandma paid for me a membership because she knew I was homeless and knew I needed somewhere to shower. So I'd go to Planet Fitness and shower. I stayed at my friends' houses on couches, slept on the porch of a couple abandoned buildings a couple times. just whatever was fit for me at that time.
Yeah.
And then I was introduced to even I feel like a step darker than heroin, for my say, and that was methamphetamines. And that was around the age I was like 22. Up to that point, I was always just sluggish, and like I was addicted to pain pills, so I really wasn't doing much. I would get high and lay down somewhere, or get high and go to sleep. And then I got introduced to methamphetamines, and at first I said I wasn't going to do it, but when I broke down and like I always say, I just try it once. When I tried it once, my life, it like rocket shipped into like out of this world type thing. And it took complete control of me. It made me violent. It made me angry. It made me hate the world. And it was a bridge for me whenever I was sick, if I didn't have heroin, to bridge over to my next high. So I used it to like speed me up and get things done. I could run around all day long and not need to get high on heroin because I was so speeded up. I was so
Keyed up, really.
high. I was like basically the word for it would be like tweaking, street term.
Yeah.
And then I did that for about 6 months. And one night I was at a friend's house, and this is like when my life really changed. I remember I was in a trap house with a bunch of grown men, and this was a good day for me, which sounds silly for a drug addict, but it was a good day. So a good day for a drug addict is like I had like a couple $100 in my pocket. I had a gram. I had some heroin. I had some weed. I had a pack of cigarettes. I had some meth. And I'm in a room full of grown men, and we're all strung out, and I'm the one with the drugs. And I had fell down and hit my knees and started crying in front of everybody. And they're like, "What's the problem here?" And they're like, "What's going on, Michael? Like, get up! You're acting silly." I'm like, "No." I was like, "I'm not acting silly." I was like, I was like, "I don't want to live like this no more." I was like, "I want to change my life." And they're like, "Why do you want to change your life?" I was like, "I'm just tired of being sick. I'm tired of living like this." And they're like, "Get up, quit acting silly, get up, we'll get high." So I stood up and we started getting high. And, that thought that I was praying when I hit my knees, but that fleeting thought of wanting help left me. It's that fast. Like, I want help. And then I had someone talk me out of it. And then I was like, you know what? You're right. I don't need help. 24 hours later, less than 24 hours later, actually, that evening, me and a friend of mine, he asked to borrow some money off me, and I had said no. And at that point, we had gotten in an argument over me not loaning him money. He had attacked me. And this was a friend that was living with me. And my dad had let me move back into his house just a few months prior, my dad, I had never lived with my dad. And he's like, I know you're homeless. You can move in here and sleep in my extra room. He's like, there's nothing in there. There's no walls, no drywall, like, but you can stay there. And I was like, all right. So it was super cold, but I was staying there for a few months, and I let my buddy stay with me. And we had gotten that argument over me loaning him some money, and we got in a fight. And I had been up a few weeks, and he had started beating me up. He was about almost 10 years older than me, and he got on top of me and started beating me up. And being scared and up on drugs for a long period of time. I thought he was going to kill me. He was on me. He was attacking me. He hit me probably 20 times. It felt like forever. I had knocks all over my head. So I just my guess 20 times. It felt like 20 times. It felt like a long period.
Felt like your whole life.
Yeah, my whole life was like flashing before my eyes. You know what I mean? So I had pulled, and and there's guys standing around us watching this guy do this to me, and no one wanted to help me. And I asked for help. I'm crying, and no one would step in. So I had pulled out a pocket knife and struck it at him, and I had stabbed him. And as a result of that, it cost him his life. After it happened, though, I realized what I had done, and I tried to save him. I took my shirt off and I put it on his chest, and I'm like, "Listen, he has to go to the hospital, guys." I drug him to a vehicle. I had someone take him to the hospital immediately. This was just one time. This is all it takes, though. I struck at him one time, and I tried to save him immediately. We instantly took him to an SUV and instantly took him to the hospital. And when he got to the hospital, the EMS said that he was fine. He was in stable but critical condition, and he was going to make it. So me being an addict, I go back to what I know, and I'm like, well, he's fine. So let's go back to getting high. So we go back in the other room. We're getting high again. I'm not even realizing what I just did because I'm so far gone. My mind is washed. I don't even realize, that I just hurt one of my friends. And, about an hour later, cops pull in, about 15, 16 cop cars pull in. I mean, it looks like a Christmas tree on the windshield, or the blinds of the house. And I'm like, oh gosh. My buddies looked at me. I'm like, what should I do? He's like, if I was you, I'd get out of here. So I do what anyone else does when they're scared and, feeling like the world's falling down. I took off running, and I ran about 1.5 miles from where it happened at. And then once again, my mind was so washed, I just forgot what I was doing and forgot my whole train of thought. Didn't realize there was blood on my hands and like blood on my shorts, like literally blood on my shorts. And I walk in a gas station and go in there and get a pack of cigarettes. And I walk outside and I light up a cigarette, and I'm talking to one of my friends that I seen there. He's like, what happened to you? What's going on? Why are you like this? And I'm trying to explain to him, but I'm talking in circles. And about the time about 5 cop cars pulled in, and one of them jumped out, pulled a gun on me instantly. He said, are you Michael Brown? And I said, no, sir. I said, I'm Jeff. My middle name's Jeff. I said, I'm Jeff Brown. And he's like, no, your name's Michael, and you're under arrest for murder. I said, what? And they arrested me for first-degree murder. My uncle, like I had said, was a lead detective. He showed up at the courthouse, and first another thing, I don't think he even realized I was getting arrested. And he walked over to me. He's like, what are you doing here, Michael? He's like, what'd you do this time? And that's when he looked over and looked at my paperwork, and it said first-degree murder. And I'm getting like processed. They're going to take my picture, and he said, "Is there anything you can tell your mom?" And I had seen what they were charging me with, and I said, "Just tell her I love her." And I started crying, and they snapped my mugshot. Looking back at that mugshot, it hits home knowing that, the whole scenario that played up to that part. Like him telling me, like, what your mom would think, what do you say to her? And I'm like, just tell her I love her. Like, because at that point, I didn't know if I was ever going to come home. For a year, actually, I didn't know if I was ever going to make it out of prison. I fought a life sentence for 6 months. They reduced it from a life sentence to second-degree murder, which was 10 years to 40 years in prison. I was 23 when it happened. 40 years, I'd have been 63 years old. My mom at the time being was 50. She wouldn't have been alive. So I didn't know if I was ever going to see her again outside of there. So I get incarcerated for a little bit, and they put me on a pod where there was a guy that he did a Bible study. I remember my first night in jail. There was a guy who did like a Bible study thing, and he asked me if hey, you want to come? And something told me, like, you should try this out, Michael. Like, every other thing you've ever tried your entire life hasn't worked. So maybe you should try something different today. And so I went to that Bible study, and at the end, he said, is there anything anyone wants to pray about? And I was like, yeah. I was like, pray for the people I've harmed and his family. I was like, pray for my friend that lost his life and pray for his family. And that, I feel like it was God talking to me, telling me, like, I want to give you a chance to, potentially be forgiven. I'm not saying that his family will ever be forgiven me, but I feel like, I'll be able to make like an indirect amends each day by not using drugs and not, harm people anymore. So I fought that life sentence for 6 months. They offered me a plea for 10 to 40 years. I didn't want to take that though, because, I knew in my heart that I felt like in my heart that it was self-defense. And I felt like that I shouldn't get any time, selfish and self-centered. I felt like I really didn't do nothing bad. I was like, I should be granted a reward for defending myself. Granted, I was on drugs and harmed a bunch of people, but I feel like I didn't do anything wrong at that time. I had a court-appointed lawyer, and up to that point, they thought the guy's house that we was at said that we got in a fist fight. I had pulled out a knife, and the guy was just standing there, and I had stabbed him maliciously. And so that's why I had the life sentence. The guy's house we was at lied, so he would get in trouble and said that I maliciously attacked this guy. So everyone thought that I maliciously attacked this guy, and they made it like in the news article, they said like I did it over like a weed eater or a chainsaw or something. They made me look like some like stone cold mass murderer,
deranged criminal.
They painted this really bad picture of me. Yeah, like some deranged, freak of nature guy, and that was not me at all. Like people who knew me knew, like I had got my life had changed, but and deep down in I had a good heart. I never really like harmed anybody up to that point, other than just with drugs,
Right.
So we fought that trial. I had a court-appointed lawyer because, my family's poor and we couldn't afford a good lawyer. I had a court-appointed lawyer, so he was really only doing like the bare minimum, which granted he did a good job, but he was doing the bare minimum. And I remember up to trial, he's like, you don't want to take this plea? I said, no. I was like, I feel like I don't deserve that. I don't deserve 40 years in prison for self-defense. And the day before trial, they offered me a plea for 3 to 15. And they said that the guy's daughter came forth and said that the guy attacked me and I was on the ground. and said that I did what I did out of self-defense. So my lawyer showed up and was like, dude, this is like a movie. He's like, we're going to beat this. He's like, don't take any pleas. And I'm like, all right. So I went to trial and we picked jurors. And long story short, I'm like, they offered me a plea again. I said no. The next day I prayed. So this guy, the guy that had the Bible study that first day I was in jail, he had a really good lawyer, and they offered him a plea for a 1-5, and he had already had that time in. He would have got out, and he said no. And he said no. He's like, I'm gonna wait on. I'm gonna let God dismiss this. And they ended up giving him a life sentence because he didn't take the plea bargain. He asked his lawyer, this is a really good guy, he asked his lawyer, he said, what happened? He said, they offered me 1-5, and and I ended up getting a life sentence. He's like, well, sir, he's like, because he kept saying he's waiting on God. He's like, here's an analogy for you. He's like, say a flood happens and you're on top of a roof and it storms and you can't get down. A boat comes up and asks you if you want to ride. You say no. And then, someone else pulls up in a helicopter and says, hey, you want me to pick you up? You say, no, I'm waiting on God. And then it floods again and you drown and you go to heaven and you say, God, why didn't you save me? And God said, well, I tried to save you twice. I sent you a guy in a boat and I sent you a guy in a helicopter. You refused them both. And then you end up drowning. He's like, the pleas that guy was offered was his boat and his helicopter, and he refused that. Yeah. So God did try to save you. And that's what that guy told me. So I'm like, is God telling me, was that my boat and my helicopter, the pleas they offered me? So, I'm going back to the jail and they're I'm going back to trial the next day and I'm walking in a jumpsuit and I got a bulletproof vest on and it's just because it's a high, it's a popular case. It's one of the biggest cases that happened in Wood County in like 20 years.
It's a high threat environment for us security people.
Yeah, exactly. And so I get there and, I pray. I'm like, God, tell me what you want me to do. Like, if you want me to take this, tell me. Like, so we go in there and second day of trial and they pull me aside and they say, we're going to offer you this plea one more time. And if you say no, we're going through with trial. And we're going good for second degree, which was the 10-40. And they said, if you take the plea today, we'll recommend you only get 10 years, a maximum of 10 years, which would have been like, if I do 5 years, as long as I don't get in trouble, I'd get out no matter what. And I'm like, all right. And I took the plea. I feel like that was God that day. And my mom was crying, saying, take the plea. I can't make it 40 years. And she was in my head and my lawyer was in my head. And I feel like that was God telling me, like, here's your helicopter, Michael. Take it or you're going to drown. The wrath. Yeah, exactly. You're going to drown. So I'm like, you know what? I took the plea and I ended up doing 5 years in prison, but I felt like I also needed to take some accountability for my actions. Like, I know I harmed a lot of people through that. And a lot of people had a lot of rough feelings because of my actions. And I felt like the community deserved justice for that. Like, let's be real. Like, what I did was wrong, so I needed punished for it. But I made the best of my time in there. I made a devotion to God that I was going to find a calling and I was going to help as many people as possible. And, I still stick to that. Up to that point in jail, I was still using drugs and getting high. They sent me to the worst prison in the state, a gang dorm. They thought I was a gang member. It was a rough environment for a while, but, through good behaviors and through my actions alone, they put me to a minimum security facility. I started working with handicap assistance dogs. I learned some humility. I started training people, dogs for kids with like Down syndrome, guys with old people with MS, PTSD, like, a lot of things. And then through that, I was able to share my experiences and what I did and, how I was able to make a difference. And then I went to this drug program called RSAT. I went to my first meeting, recovery-based meeting, and it was a 12-step program. And I learned about recovery. I learned about second chances, and I learned about like what my life could be like, if I didn't involve drugs. And, that program Jesus Christ, that program allowed me to build a relationship with my higher power, who I see called Jesus Christ, and God. And, through that, man, I was able to like turn my whole life around. So I ended up getting back in college. I sent a 5-page paper to college stating that I was a drug addict and stuff. And that's the reason why I flunked out, and they approved me to get back in college. I graduated that drug program. I was a senior coordinator. So I ran the actual drug program, graduated it, started working for the college as a tutor. I tutored kids. I got some guy his GED. I trained him every day, or tutored him every day, for an hour a day for about 3 months and helped him get his GED. He cried to me and told me how thankful he was. That was a really good feeling. I tutored guys in college with math and English and history. and all while being a full-time student. And then, it comes to my time to be released, and I ended up getting released from there. I moved to Florida for a little bit. I started sharing my story and stuff to people, like letting them know, like, what drugs and addiction and bad choices in my surroundings had did to me, and how I allowed like my mental health problems to affect my choices, which led me to drugs and where it led me to. They say there's three things you can get out of addiction. That's jails, institution, and death. And that's what's going to happen if I could. I don't know if that's what's going to happen to me if I continue to use. I'm going to jail, I'm going to die, or I'm going to be in rehab somewhere. More than likely, I'm going to die, honestly. Yeah. And so I started going into schools and speaking. I went to some churches and spoke. I made some big connections. The whole time while I was incarcerated, I worked out. I used that as a way for me to escape reality, find my own peace. You know what I mean? I used working out to strengthen my mental health, to get rid of my depression and to boost my confidence.
Yeah.
I worked out hard about 2 or 3 times a day because really you don't have anything else to do in there but read books and work out. And then like I said, I moved to Florida, worked out in Florida. I moved back here from Florida after 2 years, and I had worked in treatment for a while, in like recovery industry. I moved back here to West Virginia where, all the problems happened because I felt like there was some unsettled business here that I needed to like make some amends with. I spent 15 years of my life ruining this town. It's time for me to come back here and spend an equal part or more making a difference in this town. Like I want to come back here and show people like, look who I was, look what happened, and look who I am today. Yeah. And if I can do it, anyone can do it.
I want to interrupt you real quick, Michael. So, and I know we're about to get into like the actual, like the stuff that you've been doing now.
Yeah.
But I do want to mention something, and this is something that's kind of stuck to me, right? I remember seeing the article, and I remember being surprised by it. And the reason being is because at that time, I don't know if you remember or not, but I had run into you at Planet Fitness like quite a couple of times at that point, And I remember our conversations because you were like, you always seemed like happy, go lucky. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I had never really had any experience with like talking with anybody who was doing drugs or having that kind of lifestyle, right? So I can't say a whole lot, but anytime I'd ever talk to you, man, I remember you'd always tell me like, yeah, man, I'm working on, I think you were talking about boxing back then too. I'm not 100% sure, but I remember, man, I'd see you in the gym. I always thought you looked good. Like you were working out and always had like good conversations with you, man. And it's so mind blowing to me to hear your story and then think back to that moment. And dude, you were suffering. You were drowning at that time, man. And I had no clue. I was talking to you face to face and I had no clue, man. And I think that says a lot too, and like some stuff that people can kind of take away as well is like sometimes you just can't tell. You don't know. And I wish I could go back in time, bro, and like do something, but unfortunately that's not how time works, man. But I really wish I could have said something to you back then. I don't know if it would have helped, but I do wish I could have.
Appreciate that. And yeah, I heard someone say one time, they asked the man, they said, how are you doing? He said, I'm fine, and really what his fine really was, he was, like you said, he was burning up on the inside. And up to the point that you had saw me in the gym, I was far from fine, but I was better than where I went, when I got introduced, when I started up to the point when my stepdad passed away, I think I had continued working out for like a matter of months. And then it's like when I started doing the IV drug use and I got introduced to methamphetamines, and at the end of 2015, there was no more gym for me. That point, my life went to shambles. Like I didn't care about anything or anyone. All I cared about was getting high. But even prior to that, though, like you just said, it's easy for people to put on a facade and to smile and try to be happy on the outside, but on the inside, really depression is eating us up, and that's why I chose to use drugs, is because of that. Yeah, man. It's a scary divide, because a lot of times people who are like suffering the worst, the families and parents don't even realize it, because they can project that image of being just okay, but just okay is not it,
Dude, there was a good couple of years there where I buried myself really deep into alcohol. Some stuff had happened a couple years ago, man, and I couldn't process it. So instead of like facing it and dealing with it and, going through the normal grieving motions, I found myself in bottom of a bottle every day.
and I would drink with the intention of never wanting to wake up again, man. I feel that. I really do. You're right. We put on that mask, man, and we just we pretend we're okay. We tell everybody we're okay, but
Really, we're far from it.
100%.
They say the man takes the drink and then the drink takes the man. And that goes with drinking or drugs.
One thing I really love that you talked about in our brainstorm is when you started using exercise, as you just said, kind of as an escape, you said you were treating your body as a temple for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
I think that really, whenever you get your heart rate up and you are pushing to find your limits and your abilities, I think that you're really connecting with reality. One of the authors I've been reading a lot lately speaks in prisons all the time, and he talks about how you can sit or walk as any other person on this earth, no matter where you are. And I think that you may have connected deeper with reality through that than escaping. I think you may have been escaping the cognitive distortions or these misperceptions of who you were supposed to be or what you were supposed to be doing, or you were just saying, I am here in this moment, and no matter what's going on, I'm going to be enough. I am enough. I have everything I need. I am everything that there can be.
hell yeah.
So you believed in yourself by believing in your higher power or listening to your higher power, if that's how you would describe that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Most definitely. I love the way you put that. It kind of allowed me to find a balance, you know what I mean, and to be grounded, to find purpose, you know what I mean, was my way of working out. And then like I started studying it, and I would help other people, and I give other people advice for that through working out, and talk even while incarcerated, and tell them like how it's helping me. Like, you know what I mean, I see people depressed and upset with things happening in the real world. I'm like, look, man, like, come out here and work out and forget about that, you know, and it works. Like I had some guy that was depressed with his life. He was like 285 pounds, and he was like 5'4", like short, heavy set guy. And he told me he was just miserable. And I got him to start working out with me. He started jogging with me. He lost a bunch of weight, and he was happy. I could see him smiling. You know what I mean? He'd see me and he'd smile. And he was happy. Like, so yeah, I gave not only found my own purpose through working out, but also like I allowed other people to experience the same things. I think that's really important. Mind, body, and spirit.
I think a really important or a saying that could kind of go with this in essence is if you sharpen the body, the mind will follow.
So on my honeymoon, I lost a family member. And after weeping like a wounded animal, I'm sure that was terrifying for everyone else in the house, I decided and implemented what I said. I said, I'm going to go to that mountain and I'm going to carve away everything that isn't me, and I will come back. And that's exactly what I did. So it feels like you had a similar drive. You said, I'm going to carve away everything that's not Michael Jeffrey Brown, and I'm going to come out of this thing my true self, wholly empowered. And when you do that, you're unstoppable, honestly.
I really want to brag on you real quick, Michael, because I want to hear from you, right? The stuff that you've been doing and the positive changes you're making out in the world now. But the way Aaron had put that, where you carved away everything that wasn't you and you came out as Michael Jeffrey Brown, dude, you are a beautiful human being, man. Thank you so much for being on this planet. All of the stuff that you've been doing, all of the stuff that I can't wait for you to tell our guests what you've been doing, dude, night and day difference, man. You are a massive force for good on this planet, and I'm so glad that you're here doing what you're doing, man. So why don't you run us through it, man? Tell us what you've been getting into. Tell us how you're changing the world.
So, I did a lot since coming back to Parkersburg. While in Florida, I worked in recovery for a while. So I came back to Parkersburg, and I got off parole or probation, and I got a job here in the area working in recovery. So I started. My boxing coach saw me one day at the gym, and he's like, "Hey, you should come down to the gym sometime." He's like, I can help. You can help me out with these kids. He's like, it'd be fun. You'd like it. Good way to spend time productively. And I'm like, yeah, for sure. So I started going down there, and I practiced with them once or twice. And then I one day I was like, you know what, I'm going to try. I put some gloves on and started hitting the bag. And I'm like, man, like, and I was in such good shape from, cutting away all that nonsense and not being exposed to like all these different things in the world, I mean, cigarettes, drugs, alcohol. And I had been working out so strong and eating so healthy for so many years. Like, I was so many steps ahead of everybody. Even the guys that had been boxing there for a few years, I was past those guys even because I had experience already. I knew how to box, and then also now I'm in really good shape. So that gave me the edge of everybody. So I started boxing. I picked that up. I got a job working as a peer mentor. So what that means is like I help guys who were going through the same things that I went through, and I allow them to set goals for themselves, and I work with them to achieve those goals. I grew up on Lynn Street, and then I moved, when I came back here, I moved to a place in the area close to City Park. You guys are familiar, in a nice neighborhood. City Park's pretty nice, especially from Lynn Street.
Yeah.
Every day I would leave. I met this guy who had a yard sale across the street, and I talk a lot. So I walk over and I'm like, hey, how you doing today? Like, I just moved in across the street last month. My name is Michael. And he's like, well, sir, he's like, I don't live here. This is my mom's house. He's like, she just got admitted into a nursing home a few years back, and I'm getting rid of her stuff. I'm going to sell her house. But I'm like, wow, well, this is a really nice house. And he's like, yeah. I was like, well, what do you want for it? He's like, I don't know. I have to go through the process. And I'm like, all right, well, keep me up to date. Here's my number. And he's like, all right. So every day I would go to work, I would see this house, So I'd leave for work at 8 a.m, and I'd come back about 4. And then I picked up another odd job working at a restaurant. I'd work at a restaurant 2 or 3 days a week. And someone's like, you really don't need to work there. I'm like, you're right. But, I feel like a bright light shines brightest in a dark room. So a lot of times people go out to restaurants that are like, and it's a fine dining restaurant, but sometimes people go to restaurants and they're drinking, or they're like, you never know how their day is going. You never know who you might meet. And you can kind of feel the vibe by talking to them, So I'm waiting tables. I'm working at this full time at this rehab facility. And, when I wait tables, I walk up to them and I'm like, hello, how you doing today? I introduce myself, and they usually say, how are you? And I say, blessed. I'm happy to be here. Today's a wonderful day. I talk about God. I talk about, the differences in my life. I don't really go in detail so much as being a recovering addict. If they know me, they probably get the vibe. Like, you could probably know what's happened to me in a sense. They don't know everything. They know a little bit, and they see the light that's in me, So that's a good experience. I'm spreading the message everywhere I go. And then I worked full time for 2 years. Now that I've been back here in Parkersburg, I've been working 2 jobs constantly. Then I worked part time with teaching the youth boxing that I've been doing. And I picked up boxing. And then I started getting my coach like, would you want to have a match? And I'm like, sure. Like, I guess, like, might as well. And I tried it, and I boxed some guy that had been doing it for 3 years constantly. And I just, by the grace of God, I did really good and like picked him apart. I destroyed him for my first match. And then he's like, wow, you're way better than I thought you was going to be coming back. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. And then the Barstool thing, and they had an event locally, and I had signed up for it. It was Rough and Rowdy, and they didn't know who I was. They just knew that I had just got out of prison, that I had some people who followed my story, and they seen that I was making some ripples in a big pond. And they're like, yeah, come on our show and come fight this guy. I'm like, well, who do you want me to fight? They're like, oh, you can fight one of our champions. And they thought that I was going to go up here and I was going to get beat. That was the whole thing. But it says in scripture that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And I tried to tell them that. And, I fought one of their main guys and I beat him. And then they're like, all right, well, we're going to see how far this goes. And then about 5 months later, they're like, you want to fight another one of our champions? And I'm like, sure. So they flew me from West Virginia to Rhode Island, and I fought another champion, and I beat him. And I lost 20 pounds to do this. And then I beat that guy. And then they're like, well, this kid's pretty good. And they're like, how about you fight our undefeated guy? He was like 9-0 or something. Never been beat. No one's even came close to him.
Was this the mustache guy?
No, the mustache guy was the second guy I beat.
Okay.
And that's the one I fought in Rhode Island. Yeah, he was a world. Yeah. He's a world record holder, and he won the American Ninja Warrior. That guy is a specimen of a man. He is super strong. But yes, I beat him. And then they're like, fight our other guy. He's undefeated, and no one's even came close to beating him. And I'm like, all right. But they're like, you have to gain 40 pounds. So now I've boxed, or I've fought these guys from 160 pounds to 215. Like, That's the weight classes that I hold.
God.
Yeah. And so I boxed this guy that's undefeated. And it just so happens that I boxed him on my birthday in Charleston, which was awesome. And that was the same day that Creed 3 came out. So like for me, it's like my birthday is 333. It's the Creed
dude.
3. Like, dude, I'm like, dude, this is God. You know what I mean? So listen, this is so cool.
Yes.
And this don't rally your boots. You know what I mean? Something has to. They do this interview thing and they're like, what do you have how are you going to fight this guy? How are you going to beat him? He's never been beat. And I pulled out these rocks out of my pocket. And I said, this is like David and Goliath. I was like, you guys think this guy is a monster. I was like, he's just a mere man. I was like, here's my pebbles. I was like, I got a slingshot and tomorrow I'm going to beat you. I said, you know what I mean? I was like, when he's with me, who could be against me? I was like, you're nothing. I was like, you're just another man. And I said, and tomorrow night, I'm going to make you bleed. And I didn't think that I was actually going to make him bleed. It was just kind of like I was just talking and I prayed and I let God guide my words. The next night we fought and I destroyed him. And, sure enough, he was bleeding everywhere. He had headbutted me. And you guys remember my head's the size of a basketball. Like, let's be real. Yeah. And he headbutted me and it busted his head open and there was blood everywhere.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it was like God working through me, dude. And so I beat the third on my birthday, third Creed movie. I beat the third champion. You know what I mean? It was like scripture fulfilling itself. Like it was God for sure. And, I come out the Christian music and I come out with crosses on my shorts and, I give him all praise and all glory for everything that's happening in my life. And, we actually ended up fighting again. And I felt like the decision went the wrong way. I ended up losing. But everything happens for a reason. Hopefully we get a rematch here in April. You know what I mean? And if so, I feel like God's going to allow me to shine and I'll get that belt back. But in the meantime, so outside of boxing, my buddy started a wrestling. Well, he didn't start, but he got picked as the wrestling coach at our old junior high, guys, at Van Deventer. And he was there last year, and his wrestling team, he had
Let's
3
go
or 4
Devils.
wrestlers. Yeah, let's go Blue Devils. He had 4 wrestlers at the end of the year. The first week of wrestling this year, he had like 35 guys that tried out, or 35 young men. And he's like, Michael, you should come talk to these guys. This is before, like, they ain't even got their sing. They ain't got nothing yet, but they ain't even hit the mat yet. He's like, you should come talk to these guys. And I'm like, all right. So I go up there, I talk to him, I tell him who I am. And, kind of like, I ain't go in detail about my story about being locked up or not, but I talk about being a boxer and fighting on pay-per-view and, how it's helped me shape my life and, all these things. And they're like, that's amazing. And I could see like all these lights clicking on these guys' mind. And I put some motivation in them. I'm like, hard work and dedication. You can be anything you want in life. You can go anywhere. I was like, it all starts today. And I worked out with them, and I made a promise to them. As long as they stayed in it, I was going to keep coming back every week. I would come there twice or 3 times a week and train with them. And, I did that the whole year. And my buddy's the head coach. And then my buddy's like, you know what, you should just come on and help me be the assistant. So I'm like, oh man, like I got more than I wished for. So then I got this role now on this team that I didn't even know was going to happen, but I feel like God put me there. Right. So I'm talking to these kids one day on the way to the matches and I'm like, well, who's your guys' parents? And they started telling me who their parents are. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 4 or 5 kids, maybe more on the team who like we directly, like me, all 3 of us went to school with. Like I know 3 kids for sure. We were all in the same class as them, And if you guys remember, like I had shared earlier, I was in school, like if you weren't like in my close knit circle, I was kind of like a punk, you know what I mean? I was like, I might have picked on you, might have made fun of your t-shirt because I was miserable, in junior high. I was the bully. I was the clown. I was the guy getting in trouble, and not to everybody, but to some people, you know what I mean? And I was mean, you know what I mean? And I brought people to drugs. I thought I made smoking weed look cool. I thought, you know what I mean? And so I feel like I'm making like an indirect amends, which God placed me here through these kids to their parents. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like God allowed me to work on these kids to help shape their lives due to the damage that I caused their parents. And like, that's the program that I work coming full circle. You know what I mean? That's like me making a difference back where I started in the kids' lives of the parents, their children's lives. Like it's amazing. And, the head coach got nominated coach of the year. We finished the season out. We had 31 wrestlers. We're the biggest team in the county. And also, like you guys know, Vandy's known for being troublemakers already.
Yep.
And the big thing that we drilled on these kids, we might not be the best wrestlers, we may not be have the most money, we may not have none of this, but we will have one thing, and that's discipline. We're going to be the most respected. We're going to be the nicest team in the league. You know what I mean? And these are kids that don't a lot of times have parents. They might not have dinner. They grow up in the hood. Like, you know, they don't have that structure that other schools offer, you know? So you would see us go in tournaments and we'd all walk in there, 30 kids, twice as big as the other teams. And they're all these kids are running in circles looking wild. And our kids are walking in single file. They walk over and they sit on the seats. I mean, it looked like, I mean, we weren't drill sergeants, but it looked like these kids respected us, you know what I mean? And like, they looked up to us and they wanted us to like see the work they're putting in, you know, and we got so many like, congratulations, and you guys are doing amazing. And like, we wish our kids acted like your kids. These guys had 4 and 5 students that wrestled and their teams were wild. And our teams were like calm, cool, collective with like 5 times as many students. Like, it was awesome, man. And a lot of the kids really seemed to enjoy it, and it's made a huge difference here in the community. It's awesome.
That is so incredible, man.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing. And then, so I skipped out on something. And then, so like basically my full week is like booked, you know what I mean? If I'm not working, like I'm training or something, like I'm putting in like 70 hours a week for work, and I have been for 2 years or more. I leave for work. I see this house. Anyways, this guy gets a hold of me and he's like, hey, if you want to, you know, he's like, I found out what I want for that house. If you're interested in it, you know, I'd be willing to negotiate with you, whatever. And I had someone look at it with me, and I'm like, man, I really want to buy a house, you know, but you know, who am I to buy a house? My parents have never lived in anything that's not Section 8. They ain't never, none of them graduated high school. They don't, I can't go ask my dad how to get a personal loan. You know what I mean? I can't go ask my mom how to pay a mortgage. She don't know about these things, you know? And so I'm asking these guys these questions, and I'm studying, I'm reading, and I figure out what I'm doing. I figure out how to do it. And, you know, through God and through opportunities and through my support network, I learned how to buy a house. You know, I bought that house across the street. I'm sitting in the kitchen right now. You know what I mean? This is a beautiful house. I grew, and then I was at a meeting not too long ago with some guys, and they're like, where do you live at? I was like, I live over by City Park, and I told them the street name. And he goes, you live over there? I'm like, yeah. He's like, didn't you just tell me like a couple weeks ago you grew up on Lynn Street? I'm like, yeah. He's like, wow. He's, you came a long way. He's like, from Lynn Street over by City Park. He's like, yeah, that's crazy. And you know, it is crazy to think that at one point, not only was I grew up on Lynn Street, but also at one point I sat in prison for almost a year, didn't think I was ever going to get out. And then today, now I'm sitting out here and I'm helping kids. I'm working with, you know, junior high kids, teaching them, you know, responsibility and discipline and, you know, self-respect. And then I'm teaching youth boxing, and I'm fighting on pay-per-view, and, you know, living a sober lifestyle today. I bought a house. You know, I mean, I have a car that's dependable. I've had a job. I've had the same job today, coming up on 3 years since being back here in town. I've had the same job. I've had another job, the serving job. I've worked at that serving job. So 2 jobs. I'm coming up on it on that 3 years. So not only have I had one job for that long, I've held 2 jobs that long. And, you know, before inactive addiction, like I had told you, the longest job I've ever had was 2 months. Another good thing. So all these places, all these facilities around the world are seeing my story, and they're like, man, this guy really went from like he's like a phoenix. You know, I mean, he raised from the ashes, you know what I mean, nothing, and he's raising up, and he's giving all glory to God. And he's like, you know, he was an addict, and now he's like glowing. So like, I've been in a couple of facilities in Ohio. I've been to numerous facilities in Florida while I was down there. They flew me to Costa Rica twice now. I'm actually part of a facilities treatment team in Costa Rica due to my story and my experiences. They're flying me out to a facility in Texas, and they're wanting me to work with them. And then I'm going to LA the following week. And this is in March, and I'm touring a facility out there. And, you know, I'm going out there and sharing my experiences, man. I'm talking to kids. I went to the high school and spoke to the basketball team there about like decisions and, you know, how things can turn for the worse if around the wrong kids. And I've been able to share my experience, strength, and hope with all kinds of people. And I'm making a huge difference, man. And, you know, it's a good feeling knowing that, you know, the once troublemaker, you know what I mean, college dropout has been able to graduate college. I got a bachelor's degree in college. You know, I have a nice house. I have a car. I have a little boy, 11-month-old boy who's my world, man.
Congratulations.
He's my everything. Dude, he is a handful. If you guys ever come to town, I'll have to let you meet him. He's so cute, dude. Like he's my world. And, you know, it's a good thing. I always wanted a kid. And I feel like it's God's time and not my time. And, I'm glad I had him now, because not only am I going to be involved in his life, but I'm going to be able to teach him things and be in his life the way a father should be. You know what I mean? I'm going to show him things like how to live a correct life and, teaching things that I didn't learn as a kid. And, I'm excited to see where that ball goes. And, I know it's going to be a lot of work, and, this is only the beginning, and, I'm not going to count my eggs before they hatch, but life's good today, man. I'm able to, the best part of everything, not the things that I have or my accomplishments, but with being happy with who I am. You know what I mean? I'm able to see my uncle, who's a detective, and he is happy with who I am. I can see myself in the mirror and I'm happy with who I am. My mom's happy with who I am. I've made amends with almost all my family that I've harmed in the past. I got people who care about who I am, people that call and check on me when I'm not around, people that love me for who I am, not what I have. I never had that growing up. It was always like, hey, you got, this and that. Let's hang out and party. Now, today it's like, hey, what's up? I haven't seen you today. I'm just wondering about you. Like, where do you get that from? And, it's a good feeling. The other day I'm working in my yard. I'm working on my flower bed, and a sheriff, my old lady's out there working with me, and a sheriff drives by and he hits a siren, whoop whoop, and I jump up because maybe it's my PTSD that I have from my experiences. Knowing I'm doing right, I'm still scared though, and I jump up and look up, and it's one of my buddies driving by in a sheriff's car, and he's waving at me. Who would have thought? Who would have thought me? That I used to get pulled over every block. The cop be driving by waving at me. Or stopping, getting out, coming over and shaking my hand and looking at my flowers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Life's good today.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
I would certainly argue that you are making a direct impact where you previously had made a direct impact at Vandy.
Yeah.
What did you do? You changed those people's lives. So whenever you affect their kids, in order for them to want to be impressive and be empowered, you're changing the parent's life. You're changing the exact same life you did before.
Yeah.
So I would push in that direction. Say, I affected people's lives here, and I've come back to, as Tim praised, to clear my karmic slate, which I think is beautiful that the universe led you to that. Yeah. And I do want to provide a quick anecdote about the Michael I knew. We've talked a couple times about how I did martial arts and stuff, and in our hometown, people were like, oh, dude, this guy's like a ninja.
Yeah.
And we had civics together with Mr. Yoke, who the Greens are performing this weekend, I think, or maybe next weekend. So rock on, Mr. Yoke. But you'd come in and we would be talking shit because we were two very big personalities. And you would come in and be like, man, you think you got it? I will knock you off your feet. And I'd be like, man, you look so fucking pretty when you say that shit. You're like, God damn it, Aaron, stop.
Yeah.
That's the Michael I remember. I remember we all had a hard time.
Yeah.
We all could be classified as punks for the way we dealt with our realities. But I saw that you had that really beautiful core, that heart. We only lashed out because of the pain that we were feeling. So I'm so happy that I had civics with you. I loved sitting next to you and just being able to feel your humanity. The image I saw was you wearing the Kevlar vest. And I thought, I wasn't angry. I was very sad that that's where your life had taken you. That you had that much pain, that's what happened. But I am so grateful that you came out of your Shawshank mile or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
5.5 years worth of a Shawshank mile.
The pond treated you right, man.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, man.
Very fortunate.
I think Aaron summarized that up really well, the emotions I felt too, because at that point I had just joined the military, man. I'd left hometown. I was gone, and I was surprised whenever I saw it, man, because somebody had shared it on Facebook. And I remember looking at your photo, dude, and I just thought to myself, because all I could think about was when I'd run into you. I mean, I remembered you from Vandy, right? Like, I didn't particularly like you at Vandy, like, I I do think I
you
might have
didn't
been
like
on the
me at
receiving
Vandy
end
either.
on some of that picking on. Yeah, well, Aaron and I had a tumultuous relationship, but that wasn't the Michael I remember. The Michael I had remembered was the guy who like shook my hand, smiled, and laughed and talked with me at the gym. And I saw your photo, dude, and I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't, and I did feel really sad because I was like, nah, dude. I was like, he's not like that. Like that's not who he is. And dude, hearing you talk about the fact that you're working as the assistant wrestling coach at Vandy, bro, like the place where I have a distinct memory of us as kids playing basketball during gym or something one time. And dude, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember there was a moment where you and I had almost gotten into a fight. And by that, I mean, you probably would have beat my ass because I didn't know how to fight worth shit. But like, I do remember at one point there was like this boiling over moment where I thought for sure you and I were going to get into a fight. And I think back on that and realizing now that you're at that exact same place in that exact same area, changing kids' lives, making them understand discipline, giving them a routine, telling them, bits about your story so they get to know who you are and telling kids about like decisions and how fast things can go downhill, man. Dude, I said it already, but you're such a positive force out there now in the world, and this is the Michael Brown that I'm so proud to know you, dude.
Thank you, Tim. And I honestly forgot about that situation in Andy. But now that you've said that, I actually do remember that situation in Andy, and I'm sorry.
Dude, you're good. I was going through a lot of stuff back then as a kid too, man. I didn't know how to process anything close to an emotion. And I was socially inept to handle any kind of conversation I'd have with anybody. So whatever. We grow up, man. We get better. That's all we can do.
Yeah, amen. Someone told me one time there's two things you can do in life. You can progress or you can regress. And I'm done regressing. So it's time for us all to push forward, man.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
Seriously. Keep doing the good work, man. Because if I asked you right now, how many lives do you think you've changed today? I'm sure it'd probably be difficult for you to throw out an actual number, but I guarantee you it's more than we can count on one hand, and I guarantee you've changed at least one life. And at the end of the day, I've talked about the whole purpose of this podcast with Aaron being that I want to make at least one person's life just a little bit better. I want to be that positive force in somebody's life. If it's through hearing our podcast, if it's through hearing somebody else's story and realizing that they can change themselves, I've always just wanted to change one person. And I guarantee you, dude, you have done way more than that. And keep it up, man. Keep up the good work out there.
Yeah.
Keep being that positive force out there. Keep speaking the Lord's name on high. And just be you, man. Be your absolute, unapologetic, true self every single fucking day.
Love it. Yeah, definitely going to do my best to do that. And like you said, I always say the same thing. If I can just fix or help fix, change, impact some way in a positive realm on someone's life, that I feel like my life would be complete. That's what's so important. I feel like with sharing my experiences is my grandma was a school teacher, and she said, knowledge is pointless if you can't share it with somebody else. So I try to share my experiences with so many people and just continue being that bright light. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
I feel like that's the best way to live life today.
You're surrounded by a lot of good wisdom, dude. Like, that's some beautiful stuff. Knowledge is pointless unless you can share it with somebody. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's big.
I know you're tight on time, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need us to go ahead and hit that exfil, or do you have more things that you feel called to speak on before we run the closing question?
I mean, we're good. Yeah, so we're good. Like you said, you can run your closing question. I just want to say, if there is anybody suffering with alcoholism, drug addiction, they can feel free to reach out to me. Via Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever that may be. Also, want to say what helped me most is a relationship with a higher power and to find purpose. I don't mean that some people don't like who I assume to call higher power. Just find a purpose, find something that means more than yourself, get out of yourself and find a calling, no matter what that is. If that's working out, if that's yoga, if that's something that's more important than your daily choices and your daily actions. It says in a book that I've read that any house divided cannot stand. It actually says any nation divided will not stand. That's in a book I like to call the Bible. And what that means to me is you can't live two lifestyles. So, if you're living a lifestyle where you're doing drugs and drinking alcohol, find something that counteracts that. You know what I mean? And I do this with people who smoke cigarettes. If you do drugs and alcohol and you want to find something to replace that, start working out, because you can't get healthy and do drugs and alcohol. You know what I mean? That's the way I use that for. These guys smoke cigarettes that I work with. Like, I want to quit smoking. I was like, well, what counteracts that? Try picking up something that you can't smoke cigarettes for. Try going for hikes. Try going jogging. Try stretching. These things, you can't get good at one thing if you do the other. You're going to want to drop one for the other. And that's why I chose God. I know I can't have a relationship with God and do bad things in this world. I can't be out here lying, cheating, and stealing and be praising God. You know what I mean? It just don't work like that. So I picked up that and I stopped doing the bad things. And then today, that's why my life is where it is, I feel like.
Preach.
And I'm not saying that everyone's like, oh, I'm not sure where my life's going to be, but as long as I can stop somebody else from making an impulsive split decision based off of their internal actions and emotions that can negatively impact not only their life, but millions of others, by me sharing my experiences, I hope God gives me that chance to do that. No one should have to go through the things that I have, and I hope no one ever does.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
Michael, I know you've got some big stuff coming up, so we're really looking forward to hearing more about that.
Okay.
But I know that we can't speak on something that hasn't come to fruition yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're just going to leave it there. I think as long as you keep the spirit at the center and your mind and body healthy, we're going to meet with nothing but success.
Definitely. And Michael, we're definitely going to make sure that we have all the links for like your socials and any other platform that you want individuals to be able to reach out to you on. We're going to put all that in the description. So any of our listeners, if there is something that, you want to reach out to Michael and you need some help or you just want to talk to him or anything, we're going to make sure all that is down in the description. So please check it out. Go follow him on Facebook. He posts up some of his stuff about his fights every now and then, pretty frequently, actually. They're awesome to watch. I remember watching the one where you were coming out and they had like what was it? They had you like in the jumpsuit, right?
Yeah.
Am I remembering this wrong?
Yeah. That was against the mustache guy.
Yep. I watched that fight and I was like, damn.
I'll touch on that real quick. The reason why I did that is because the first fight I had, they're like, oh, this guy just got out of prison and he's a bad guy. And they made me be like this criminal. And so I came out in the jumpsuit because they want a picture. I'll paint you a picture. I painted a picture of a criminal who just got out of jail, made it look like I was in handcuffs. And then when I got in the ring, I took my jumpsuit off and my shirt said, rescued, not arrested. And I wanted people to know that, yeah, I was incarcerated, but I wasn't incarcerated. I was saved. You know what I mean? And, I wanted people to know the true me, and so that's why I did that.
Dude, so good.
Yeah.
Definitely go check out Michael. Go watch some of his fights. I guarantee you, if you go follow his Facebook, you'll be able to see them there. So highly recommend it. He's a great dude. Seriously, massive positive force out there in the world. I can only hope that I can start making some impacts the way he does. So thank you very much for joining us today, Michael.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me. God bless you guys.
God bless you too, Michael. And a huge thank you to all of you for listening.
Yeah.
This has been Aaron
and Tim with Michael.
Thanks, fellas.
A huge thank you to Highland Markle for the original music.
Share this episode with somebody who could benefit from it.
Let us know what you want to hear our take on.
Or email us to collab.
All pertinent links can be found in the episode description.
Be good to yourselves and each other.
We love you.
Peace.
Peace.
Here's our disclaimer.
Our podcast is for entertainment purposes and cannot be substituted for professional medical advice.
If you need help urgently, please call 911 or 988. If it's not urgent, seek some professional medical assistance.
At betterhelp.com/NSLP.
Right now, we're running a sale on new stickers. We've still got shirts over on Etsy at Trinidad. That's etsy.com/shop/Trinidad.
Trinidad.
We also have Patreon, patreon.com/NoStreetlights. If you feel like making a regular contribution so we can keep doing this. Rest assured, we will keep doing this. This is the most important podcast being made, so we are not stepping away from this. I'll tell you that right now. What else, Tim? Like, follow, subscribe. We're on YouTube now with season 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Please check out our affiliate link down below with BB's Coffee. We do still have our Tanzania blend up. It's not going anywhere. It's going to stay on up there. It's delicious. It has a very beautiful floral boutique of flavor that you can indulge on. Or if turtle or caramel or Mexican chocolate is more your style, give BB's Coffee a shot.
Or if you want to have masala chai, she has
Jasmine.
tea. She has jasmine tea. That's what we're ordering right now. And you can order anything on the site with our link.
Yeah.
And that helps us out a lot.
Well, again, thanks all of you for joining us. Read the descriptions below. Share this episode with some friends. Get our names out there. Help us be able to spread the story of people like Michael.
And stories like yours.
Peace.